Welcome to the MotherLoad, a parenting talk show with host Dr. Amy Stover, licensed psychologist, and Ann Brown, parenting educator. Each week, Amy and Ann invite parents just like you into the studio and discuss the trials of parenting. It's not your mother's parenting advice. And now, here's the MotherLoad.
We got another question there, Erin?
Great question from Claire.
Okay, Claire.
She wants to know, what if you're really upset about something going on in the world and your child senses how upset you are? How do you reassure them without sounding dishonest?
Yeah, well, it's the question of the day, to be sure.
Will you say the second part of that question again, Erin? How do you reassure them without?
How do you reassure them without sounding dishonest?
Dishonest. Okay.
I'll start with my feelings about it. I don't know how Amy feels about it. And again, when I talk about kids, I'm holding in my head right now kids who are like preschool, kindergarten to third or fourth grade, younger grade school kids. I feel very strongly that when children have already seen or heard or intuited something, reassurance is false.
What kind of reassurance?
Everything's going to be fine.
Right. Okay. But reassurance is important, just not false reassurance.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that there are ways that we can talk to kids about either the political climate, which I think we can use in the same category as how do you talk to a young child about someone's house burning down?
Right.
You don't say to kids, oh, houses don't burn down. Houses, it'll be fine. You say, that's why we have firefighters. That's why firefighters train and know what to do. So if we're talking about, excuse me, if we're talking about politics and the kids are hearing messages. Someone on the way to the studio was telling us that there was a young girl, a 6-year-old, who was really scared about what's going to happen with Trump, and he hates people and this. And my feeling about it is the answer is, I don't have to agree with everybody. I don't even have to like what Trump says. But here's what I get to do. Here's where my power is. I can protest. I can write letters. We know that action is the antidote to anxiety. It's not just false reassurance.
So infrastructure is what you're saying. Reassuring kids that there's some systems in place. Houses might burn down, but we have things in place to protect us from that. And also talking with them about what we can do versus what we can't do. The other thing I would add to that is, let's even take it outside of politics. Kids that are scared of, something horrible happening at school while they're there, or, getting kidnapped, or a school shooting, getting kidnapped. Here's what I tell my kids. I'm never going to leave you anywhere, you as an individual, where I don't trust the adults that you're with intimately.
Yeah.
And so, and when you are to that age where I might be again leaving you with other people that I don't know as well, then we'll make another plan. Right now, if I leave you with Ann, I know you're okay. And so I think there's larger political things that you're talking about and reassuring about infrastructure, but sometimes kids are just scared about things that is an unknown. And what I try to tell younger kids is you're always with someone that mommy trusts.
Right. And I think with, certainly topical politics going on, that kids also react to how they see the grown-ups around them reacting.
Absolutely.
And I think that we have to be honest with our kids. If you have been angry or sad or scared and talking about it and feeling it, you need to address that with your kids, not by saying, don't worry, I'm fine, everything's okay. Just saying, you know what? I'm angry right now. The election didn't go the way that I wanted. Here's what I'm going to do about it. I think that reassurance comes from knowing that it's okay to not be happy with the way things are. And that's a big parenting thing that we talk about, is helping our kids live in disequilibrium without it being too scary for them. Showing them that sometimes we don't know what the future is going to be. Here's what we have in place to make us okay while we're waiting, but
this is what we can do.
Right, you reassure a child by saying, yeah, this is what's happening right now. Here's the things that we're going to do for it, and we hope it's going to get better. I think that is much more effective than, it's not your problem, don't worry about it.
Right, that bad thing won't happen. One other quick thing that I'll add, I have a 12-year-old, and she wanted to know, we were talking about the Women's March in downtown Portland, and she really didn't want to go. We were planning to go, and we're supposed to go with a large group of people, but she didn't want to go because she said she thought it was pointless. She said, "What will it change, Mommy?" And so we had a really wonderful, rich discussion, which I won't go into, about why we protest and why we fight for the rights of other people. But really what it came down to, for her age and her cognitive abilities, what she can understand, she said, "I'd like to do something, just me and you, Mommy, that fights for the rights of women in our community." Because it made her feel like what Ann is saying, that the world may be unsteady for her at times, and there are things that we should be upset about, but also there's something we can do about it. She and I can do about it. And I think for her, it didn't feel like it was powerful to go downtown and march, but it felt like it was powerful to make bracelets and sell art and give that money to an organization. So
It's doing something.
it's doing something, and that means having a conversation with your kids, right? Don't give blind reassurances, is what we're saying. Talk with them about, what your family values. Talk with them about actions that you can take.
And what it feels like to not get what you want.
Right.
What do you do with that feeling of frustration that can be as specific as you don't get a gift you wanted at Christmas, to as huge as you didn't get the president that you voted for.
Right. And we could talk about that for an hour if we wanted to.
Oh,
But
do you want to know?
Let's see if there's other questions first. I know Erin's writing down other questions because I think that other piece is so important.
Yeah, we have one here that's talking about.
Or do you have others that were coming in? You're good?
That. This is someone who must be in my classes, because it's something that I've said in class. How do you know which one message is the most important one in a fight? And I think that comes from something that I said in class.
The fight with your kid?
A fight with your kid.
For your,
in the
for your
ring.
spouse, I'm wondering. It's usually that mommy's right.
No, in a physical fight, in wrestling. That I often say, you only get one message to give your kid in the middle of a fight. So let's just say it starts with something benign, like don't use the markers to draw on the table. And while you're saying that, your kid covers their ears. And then you're like, don't cover your ears and don't use the markers to play on the table. And so they spit at you. And it's like, don't spit at me, don't cover your ears. And it becomes like a children's book. If I say this, and what the question from the parent right here is saying is, in the middle of that cluster, how do you know what is the most important message? My answer to that is, generally it's the first one. It's the first one that you woke up to, that you realize there's a problem, which of course segues into a different issue, is we have to wake up at the moment that our kid is doing something we don't like. Because if we have gone into stall tactics and avoidance tactics, by the time we let go of all of our patience, it's about something stupid.
Right.
But I think that one of the ways to know also is to ask ourselves, is this about respect? Respect for someone, for something, for yourself? Is this about safety? If it's about respect and safety, go there when you're talking about how you're dealing with things. Because I think that otherwise you're going to get caught in the specifics. You're going to say to your kids something like, we don't eat in the den. And your kid inevitably is going to go, well, actually, on November 3rd, in 1923, there was a family that did. And so you want to really stay to the big picture, the big banner of, is this about respecting yourself, other people or things, or is this about the safety of somebody, both emotionally and physically? I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
Amy, you want to take?
Well, I was going to, can I add something to the one message? I think it relates to something we talk a lot about, which is going to the end.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you are, I think the example you used is, don't draw on the table or listen to me, or right, whatever your child is doing, these what we call stopping behaviors, you want your child to stop doing something. Stop whining in the grocery store. Stop asking me for something. Part of that's based on your family value system. What are those important messages you want to give them? But the other thing is, how's this going to end? And if you have the right mindset at the moment to think to yourself, am I really going to give in and get them the toy anyway? Am I really going to get in and get them a different piece of paper and let them draw on the table? Am I going to let them eat in the den anyway? Then just do that.
And own it as it's your thing.
Right, because otherwise you have this power struggle that occurs. And at the end of the fight, what your child has learned is, if I push this long enough, my mom will just give in anyway. So go to the end of it. And if you're not going to give them the Star Wars Pez dispenser in the Target, checkout aisle, then say to them, today we're not getting that. And that's the end of the story.
Because otherwise, this is what yes sounds like to kids. Fine. And that's just not a healthy yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, great.
Absolutely.
Low battery, Amy.
Okay.
So I
We're
want
about 5 minutes, Erin
Okay.
says.
Do we need to take another new question, or can we continue on that one? Oops. There goes my.
You
Sorry,
lose your
let's-
microphone. You're okay.
I spent 5 minutes looking for my microphone. I want to add to that, go to the end of the fight first. One of my kids said to me a couple of weeks ago, I was on the phone talking to him about my parenting. I don't know why I was talking about that. But he said, you know, your whole theory of raising kids comes from Colin Powell's doctrine of war. And of course I was offended, because I want to know that my theories come from, you know, Noam Chomsky. I want to know that my theories come from other people. But I looked up Colin Powell's doctrine of war. And one of the things...
We got 5 minutes for Colin Powell's
No.
doctrine of war?
I'm only going to number
okay,
5 on it, which is... We'll do another show on Colin Powell's doctrine of war and parenting. But number 5 says, is there a plausible exit strategy to avoid endless entanglement? And that's kind of what you're talking about, which is going to the end of the fight first is really, before you open your mouth and say anything to your kid, it's like, what am I going to do when I'm exhausted? What am I going to do after 10 years in this country fighting? What am I going to do? And that the words endless entanglement really stuck with me, because that's what it feels like sometimes. I feel, you know, even with our spouses, sometimes you're in the middle of a fight, and in the middle of it, you're like, I could use a break. You know, I could use a refresher. I don't remember what I'm fighting about. I'm just so pissed off that I have to keep fighting. So that was.
And I would say, Anne, if you are feeling like you're emotionally entangled with your child, there's a bigger problem, right? Because once your children's feelings become your feelings, once your kids' feelings, their emotional state dictate your emotional state, you got no exit strategy other than making them happy, and then you're in big trouble.
Which is why we really feel that compassionate detachment is the model to keep in your head all the time, of an equal balance of compassion and detachment. Because most of us have it together with one or the other. Some parents are very, very compassionate towards their kids, but they don't know how to detach. Everything they do, they over-identify. And some parents kind of have the detachment together. They could use a little bit more compassion.
Right. We're going to go back to a question that Shane asked, and Anne's going to start. So Shane said and posted, what happens after you've done your 3 rounds and your child is basically like, bring it, I'm ready for the fight?
Right. And when Amy and I were talking during the break, it really is different depending on the age of your child.
Absolutely.
That if you're having a fight with a 3-year-old about brushing teeth, I'm pretty comfortable, although I don't know all of you, but I'm going to qualify. I'm pretty comfortable with taking a 3-year-old who is your child and doing this. Looks like I'm going to brush them.
And they go.
And you know, but even if you do a perfunctory, you know, you don't have to. You can just get in there and just.
The
go,
important thing is the message.
Okay, open your mouth.
Oh,
or close your mouth.
Yeah.
So I'm comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with getting much more physical than that.
Right.
So
and I like what you said when we were on break, which is if your child's about to run through the hallways and run around the house and make you don't want to give them that power.
That's right. And you know, that's kind of where Colin Powell brings you back to what's your exit strategy. If you realize in the moment, this isn't going to work because your kid either has taken off with the toothbrush and run through the house, or it looks like you're going to have to really hold them down physically
and hurt them
and hurt them, then you have to go to the next step, which to me would be something like, well, if you're not going to brush your teeth, and I know that teeth have to stay healthy, it looks like we're just not going to be able to have any treats. There's going to be, I can't give you cookies, I can't give you anything if you're not going to brush your teeth, so I guess it's your decision. Not the greatest answer, probably dentists are going to call in now.
But you know what?
But I don't want to hurt my child.
And it's our opportunity to do our favorite thing, which is what Anne and I call the parental shrug.
Shrug! Guess you can't have any cookies.
Right. Well, we just won't have dessert. Most of the time in my house, that's pretty motivating, right? Now let's talk about older kids, right? If you've said turn off the TV, and they haven't done it, and you've kind of done your first, and you're moving towards the TV, and they basically pick up the remote.
Right.
Now they're ready to go to the mat. I'm not going to the mat with a 12-year-old. I'm going to shrug my shoulders and say, well, I guess we'll just turn off the cable, and I'm going to walk away.
Yeah.
I'm not going there, but I am going to be very clear about that no was no, and I have a different way that I can handle this because I'm not going to fight with you. It's not worth that kind of energy and effort. You can use the the phrase that I like, which is, I love you too much to fight with you about this. I'll just turn off the cable and walk away.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that phrase, but
I
God bless.
I am.
You know, and what Amy is saying,
sorry, go ahead.
what Amy is saying is number 5 with my man Colin, which is there a plausible exit strategy to avoid endless entanglement?
Right.
And if your kid takes that remote, it's going to be endless entanglement. If you try to say,
Absolutely.
give me the remote. No, I said, give me the remote. No, I said, give me the remote.
So
Thank you, Shane, for your question.
Thank you so much. So we had another question from Heidi, who was talking about her 8-year-old.
Right. Heidi's question talks about her 8-year-old. Number one, when Heidi is talking to the 8-year-old, the answer is pretty much like, yeah, well, I don't like that, or you're hurting my feelings, or whatever. And Heidi had asked, how do I make her feel heard
Right.
while holding to the boundaries when kids are really being obnoxious? I think that first thing, we have to stop talking as much as we are talking. I mean, I know that's ironic coming from me, but I'm talking about when you're having an argument with your kids. I like saying this to a child who has just exploded with anger and 100 different things coming out, reading me the riot act. What is it that you need from me? What is it that you need from me says, I hear you, and I'm willing to come help you get what you need to get. The problem is, as parents, we so often, the kids come at us with their long laundry list in one breath, and right away our entire idea is, how do I manage this? How do I get my kid to calm down? How do I keep myself calm? And we're missing the whole point.
And
which
we're
is
escalating because they're escalating.
right, and we're missing the content of what the child is saying. Because when somebody is screaming at you, it's really hard to understand the content. And so what I like to do first thing is say, what is it that you need from me? It actually forces a child to stop with blah, 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 and say what it is they need.
Right.
I hope that's helpful, Heidi.
I'm gonna add something to it. Feelings, validating your child's feelings and still having boundaries, let's separate those out as 2 different things.
Yeah.
Okay? You can respond to the feeling without changing your position on their behavior, right? You can say to them, I'm really sorry that you're sad about that, or you seem really upset. Can I help you with that feeling, right? Can I help you organize that feeling? Can I help you have coping tools so that this feeling that you're having isn't so bad? But me changing my mind about what my answer is not the way we're going to solve the problem or help you with your feeling, right? Because if the goal of parenting, and I think we said this a little bit ago, if the goal of parenting is to always have your child be happy, you will never have boundaries with them. And so if instead you're able to say things to them like, I can see that you're really sad about this. I can help you with how to handle sad feelings, right? Or what you said, what can I do for you right now?
Actually, that's what you and I were talking about.
That doesn't mean that you're going to change your
earlier.
mind about no, you can't have the cookie or no, you can't have the doll.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're talking about it on the air. That's what you and I were talking about earlier, which is we both believe that one of the biggest goals in raising kids is to raise kids who can cope.
Right.
And kids who can cope with the vicissitudes of life. Kids who can cope with the fact that they're not going to get what they want, that they have to sit in the feeling of anger, they have to sit in the feeling of not knowing. And as a parent, that's really hard to foster that because we don't want to see our kids struggle. Oops.
That's okay. Let me tell you the worst news I give people in my office. They come in and their child's anxious or their child's depressed and they're like, okay, so you're going to help them not feel this way, right? And I say, yeah, not my job.
Yeah.
And what I say to them is, I'm not going to help your child not feel anxious or not feel depressed because in our lives, we're going to always experience those feelings. What I'm going to do is help your child learn how to deal with those feelings.
How to feel them.
So that later they don't, become alcoholics or gambling people or addicts in any other way, that they've learned how to deal with feelings in a developmentally appropriate way.
And we know a lot of adults who, the minute they feel a feeling, immediately go to how do I get rid of feeling this feeling. I would say the worst news I give people in my
Maybe
office.
that's why they're on Facebook right now.
Maybe that's why
how they
we're
deal with
on
feelings.
Facebook right now. I would say the worst news I give people in my practice is I don't take insurance. Because I'm not a therapist.
That is bad news.
It is. They say, so
still
do you
love
take insurance? I go, okay, well, here's the deal. My degree's in ethnomusicology of Bulgaria, and I'm not a therapist, so I can't take insurance. And I think the real worst news is you can't change anybody else.
I have really good news for you. Aaron Brown just joined the conversation.
Aaron Brown?
Aaron Brown? Is that what it says? Oh, Aaron Bloom. I thought it was your son, but then I remembered he has a different last name. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks for
really
knowing about my life.
Then you'd really be in the
Friend of
spotlight.
12 years.
All right, we have about 2 minutes left. Here's what we're going to do. Let's talk a little bit about a family mission statement, because I think that's a
Yeah.
really positive
Oh, I love
note that
family
we could
mission
end
statements. Yeah.
on. How do you do family mission statements with your clients, Anne?
We talk through the beginning, which is to make a statement. The first opening statement is, what is it that we hope to see in our family within the world? So an opening statement could be something like, our family believes that respect for all sentient beings and things is paramount. So you start with the big overarching,
Right.
the
When we
sign
did this
under
in
which
my
you will
family,
march.
we can use this as an example. We said we think we should be kind. We think people
Yeah.
should be kind, which was
Yeah.
a nice starting point, for
Right.
lots of reasons.
You start big and vague, and then you move down to specific to what that might look like. I think that the statement itself is actually less important than the discussion that you
Absolutely, I
have with
agree.
your family leading up to it, because those discussions, and you shouldn't do it in 5 minutes. You shouldn't even do it in one meeting. The discussions you can have with kids, even 3-year-olds, about what's important, what's the right thing to do, what's not the right thing to do, what do we want, what is our vision for the world, what is our hope for the world. The statement itself is simply evidence that we've had the discussion, but it really helps that when you go back to it in the middle of some argument with your kids,
That's
you say, what does our mission statement say about how we think about these
X, Y, or
things
Z.
and how do we care?
And I like what you said, Anne. I want to underscore that it's important to have this discussion over several meetings. Maybe
Yeah.
Sunday night for dinner, a couple weeks in a row, we talk about family mission statements so that people don't get fatigued. And
Yeah.
here's the thing. This is why it relates later on when they're 10 and 12 and 15, because it's important that kids know what your family value system is and what your family
absolutely.
culture is, because later when they want to know, why do I miss service because
Right.
I wanted to go to this football game, you can say, well, remember when we
That's
talked
right.
about what our values are for our family? Those values don't change because your friends want to do something on Friday night.
No, I absolutely agree. I think also with younger kids, a good way to present the idea is, if you had a magic wand, how would you make the world different? Or if you had a magic wand, how would you make the family different? And that's not in the mission statement. That's how you begin the discussion. And sometimes for really young kids, for preschoolers, that's an easier way than, what would you like to see in the future for our family?
Right,
But you
right.
start with, if you had a magic wand, what would you make?
It's our
your
timer.
phone?
No, it's our timer saying that we have to wrap up and get our kids. It's okay. But
Thank you.
I
don't have to
I
get
like
my
that
kids.
idea. Right. I like that idea.
Thank you so much for joining us live. We're going to try this again, because once we figured it out after an hour and a half, it was really a lot of fun.
And for anybody that missed the first mess ups, they should go back and watch the first 30-minute
blooper
live
reel.
video, because it's entertaining for all of you tonight. It's better than watching CNN later on. So remember,
for sure.
don't parent like my
co-host.
co-host.
Thank you for watching The MotherLoad via Amy Stover.
The MotherLoad has been brought to you today by the following sponsors: